Bellefonte work session is underway here. Call to order. Welcome to the Bellefonte Borough Council work session. Welcome everyone. No council action will be taken during the work session. We have a trivia question in honor of Monday's President's Day. I hope that someone can tell me who our youngest U.S. president was.
Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy.
Chief?
John F. Kennedy.
That's incorrect. It's incorrect. Our youngest president was Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt at 42 years and 10 months.
That's amazing.
John F. Kennedy, Joanne, I see your glasses are fogging. I will clear it up for you. John F. Kennedy was our youngest ever elected U.S. president. Teddy Roosevelt, of course, became president after McKinley's assassination in 1901. Happy President's Day.
And here's another piece of
See, that guy knew it. Look at him.
here's a piece of trivia about Teddy.
I love those answers. Oh my God, you guys.
Here's a related trivia about Teddy. He became vice president because they wanted to put him in a place where he had no power. But it didn't last very
And he
long.
starred in our favorite movie, The Night in the Museum. Okay. First item for discussion is the north parking lot.
Sure.
We're going to be able to do that?
No, that was the
That's
one
the guy that wasn't gonna
postponed
come.
to the next meeting.
Okay, we're going to discuss parking fees and length of enforcement.
I can sort of start it, this probably came up, I think some of the members were getting questions about the extended service hours for parking during COVID, the early part of COVID. Right about that time, Borough Council was looking at extending the hours. I think they ended about 5 p.m. I think we went to 8 p.m. Basically, the desire was a method or a management to create turnover for the businesses in the downtown. What we were seeing, what has happened off and on throughout years in the downtown, is residents come home at 5:30, park in the metered areas and stay there till the next morning. If we extended the hours, the idea was they would not tie up those parking spaces, which is like your prime spaces for turnover. The short-term meters are prime meters. They're geared for creating turnover. So the idea is the restaurants would have some capacity for parking for patrons to come in, eat, and leave, and the next one would do the same, versus having a tenant park there in front of the store for business or restaurant the whole evening. So that was the theory. COVID hit right about the time we switched over to 8 p.m. So it really wasn't effective. We had some retirements and parking, so that made it not effective. But now we're up and running, and it's more effective now. But I think, it's new, that the enforcement is new, and people aren't accustomed to the new enforcement. We have 3 part-time officers that cover nearly all those hours of coverage from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, a little bit on Saturday morning. So this is really the first go-around, our first opportunity where we've had full service of enforcement after COVID, pretty normal hours. So your people are not accustomed to that. What we recommended in the regular meeting, if council wants to take action, maybe give us 6 months to collect data and look at the turnover, look at what's happening. We can already tell you it's not our purpose, but the meters, people are paying for the parking spaces. There does seem to be turnover in the parking spaces. That's happening, that's new. We're seeing increases there. So that part's working, but maybe give us 6 months, since we just kind of still in this COVID condition, just coming out of that, and give us 6 months to collect some data and bring that back to you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the issue the parking meters on the streets, or is the parking lot? Because if we're enforcing until 8 o'clock on the streets, it's relatively easy to see the turnover. My concern is for the residents in the area. They still need a place to park. And is it better for them to be in the parking lot after 5 o'clock, or is it
Yes.
better for them to be on the street?
Well-
I think that's part of the question we have, because we need to be able to give our residents a place to go to.
We talked about that 3 years ago. We talked about that 3 years ago. The short-term meters are always meant for short-term, whether it was 3 years ago or 10 years ago. Short-term meters are meant for short-term. Parking lots are meant for long-term. We've always had a permit process available for residents for the parking lots. And then beyond that, we used to have a red metered area. Now we have red painted lines areas. And that was meant for long-term parking, like 10 hours a day. A store owner comes in or an employee comes in, spends 8 to 10 hours a day in a space that you park in the red area. That's been for decades. The only difference is we went from a red meter to a red space. And even the pricing, the cost is about the same that it always has been. So we accommodated parking spaces and parking passes. We set up I think we tried to make it as simple as possible, a parking permit process. You can do it online, you can come in. We've done this many ways. We've actually expanded the ways people can come in and get a permit. But the idea is if you want to park long-term in the downtown, you're not in a short-term meter. You're either in the red area with a permit or in a parking lot with a permit, or somewhere where there's no meters or no red areas. There's areas like that. North Spring Street, for example, there's no markings whatsoever, on the street. People can park there 24/7 as long as the car's inspected, and there's no issues, no fees.
So where are the complaints coming from then?
I
can offer some.
I don't think, Sean, you can speak.
Yeah,
We're not meant to have back and forth here. Sean, if you want
Right,
to
yeah.
speak, you're welcome.
As Ralph said,
Yeah.
our intention is never to make money. It's in the downtown area. When we envisioned extending our hours, we always intended to have that person who's enforcing make sure that there's not, prime spaces being held downtown by people, parking there, coming home at 5 o'clock and just forgetting about it for the whole weekend. Okay, as Ralph said, we relaxed over when we put the new system in. It was right at the end of COVID, and things were basically a free-for-all for parking for a long while. When we got back up and running, and let me jump to the 3 people that we have now. There's 3 new people, and there's a human element there. Okay. And the complaints were coming. I've been a de facto police parking chief now for 20 years, so you name it, they're coming from everywhere. Okay, they're not used to seeing a uniformed person out checking meters. Okay, so for a couple weeks, new broom sweeps very well. Okay, so we would like them to plug the meters, put money in the meters, pay for them. That means they're going to be going somewhere. We don't want to chase business or people or business out of town. We want to bring it in. So therefore, the message that I gave to the new hires and we're all on board now, is that the newest one is he's on board for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks now, a month. He's doing a really good job. But we had to sit down and the complaints are complaints. We always get them. But when we get a big volume and a big change like this, we have to, tweak things. And I think, Dawn, I shared with you, and I think Ralph an email, what I was going to plan on talking to them about. And it's about making sure we're going to be out there. They're going to be out there walking. They're going to be making sure that people aren't parking crosswalks. I'm not going to say they're not going to enforce meters. I'm not going to say they are or not. But their focus is to keep the long-term people out of the prime spaces in front of the businesses, but be understanding that they do have to park somewhere. So there's a fine line there. You don't want to free-for-all, you don't want to chase businesses out, and you don't want to be punitive. So I think like Ralph said, give us a couple of months. I think it's going to work itself out. I've seen it already, going that way now. When you get 20 phone calls about parking in a couple of days, obviously there's a disconnect there. So I think we have it
You guys
pretty
on
much.
Zoom able to follow this all right? You guys understand what's going on here, what we're talking about, the parking? Randy, Doug, Shauna? Can they hear us?
I hope so.
It's locked up, okay. All right, hey, so real quick, just to
Yes.
recap this, Ralph, what, for
You
me,
are freezing.
okay, you do,
We are hearing,
okay.
That's us.
Yeah, they're froze, the other two are froze, Shauna hasn't moved. So that was, she's got, yeah, all right. What's changed is the enforcement hours to
Yes.
8.
Yes.
You took meters away and made parking spaces.
Yes.
Of course, once the enforcement comes back, you're always gonna have complaints.
Yeah.
I got a ticket. Same with speeding. We're not changing the speed limit on 99 because you got a ticket.
Right.
But we'll listen to your complaint.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
All right.
No,
And
I
of
do
course,
think- I do think that there's some tweaks, and
Right.
I think we can work, Sean
Yeah.
and his staff, they've been doing a good job with the new, now that we're fully staffed with enforcement. But I think the residents in particular, where the red parking spaces are, something we can look at a little more closely. I think we should look into, do we need to monitor that area after 5 o'clock, for example? That's just
Right.
one thought.
Right.
There's some red permit spaces we put up on the Allegheny Hill next to the Hofbrau. Maybe that one side, that's not the apartment side, but it's more the business side. Maybe, for example, that could go back to metered space. I think that we, like Sean said, I believe if we just let this go a few more months, but in the meantime, collect some more data and then think about some tweaks, because we're hearing some good feedback from residents that have legitimate concerns that we got to figure out how we can fix it for them.
If I can make a comment too with the permits, when we talked, I didn't realize that residential permits, I thought it was just for downtown. But from what I understand, it's anybody in the borough
Yes.
can purchase a residential permit. And I think they're $15 a month. You can park in any red parking place. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But that has saved me from getting parking tickets since I signed up for that. So that's, and I'm not parking where I shouldn't either. So
And
it's a good, it's
if
a,
you're a resident, Barb, and you live out on, say, Allegheny Street, you have someone coming to your house, it's a cleaner, you have, someone to come to work on something, you can go in online and the resident can get up to 5 free passes per month
okay.
by, just registering the person that's coming in.
Oh, nice.
That is
Nice.
something, but I don't think that's well known, so we gotta maybe in our newsletter, we gotta write something
Okay.
up and kind of
Yeah,
get
so
this
I
word
just
out
saw
there.
that today, and I'm like, well, that's a really
So
nice,
I just-
nice part
It's
of that.
deductible right out of your credit card. It's
Yeah,
deductible.
just-
I just
to-
had a
Monthly.
very
Yeah.
long conversation with
Just like
Virginia
everything.
DeRienzo,
Yes.
who's one of them that's been talking to you. She's one of them is having that issue with guests and her woman who comes to clean her house. And she had suggested, and she said she's told Don that she doesn't think necessarily that it needs to be a free permit, because there is some conflict between people who need parking as a resident and the school who needs parking. But that maybe to have an add-on permit, that instead of that, like $5 extra a month for their permit is what she was suggesting, that to add on to the residential permit, not the residential commuter, which is what you I think would be purchasing.
I'm getting residential.
Okay, well, there are 3 different levels.
Right.
Okay, but she said that if you did that, then she could have those permits in her house, so that the people who, particularly, several people she comes do not understand to make the call. If she just had them on a monthly basis, she could just hand them, go put this on your car and you'll be okay. That would be helpful, which is what we don't have right now. At least that's what she says.
Okay, well, we're trying to find a solution, you know, I mean, like I said,
Randy has a
enforcement
question.
has picked up, and there are some new issues. I'll try to find
Yeah.
something that works
You
for
can see
people.
if you can.
Go ahead, Randy. I'm gonna call him. I can.
Randy, you can type it into the chat if you'd like.
Poor Sean is frozen.
Yeah, I know.
We won't see him move, but he's frozen. So it's going in the right direction. Hey, Randy, go ahead with your question. Your hand is frozen up. Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess, we talked about this last year, and, it got voted down to make any changes at all at that point. I think that the 6 month thing, we lost some of our crew who were going out, and it was difficult to see that. I hear a lot of people saying, why do you guys start, and why can't you go to 9 to 10 or something like that, and then, maybe you go at 10. How to keep that on the table as well.
Okay. You were kind of broken up, but all right. All right, Randy. All right, that was a little tough to understand. All right, so the parking thing is going in the right direction. We'll tweak it. You're confident, Chief, I see none, so that's good. All right. Any other comments or questions about parking? I know, Barbara, I know you get quite a bit of people walking into your business with questions, and you brought some of those up at the...
Yeah, we did talk about those. I think most of these were answered. I'm willing to go 6 months with this. I do, again, like the idea
Right.
of the red painted spaces and utilizing those and moving the ones in the downtown as a good turnover instead of a long term is good for downtown.
And be able to...
I want to say there's some, for the folks out here, when we get into the regular business meeting at 7:30, there'll be a time for you when the president says the public can get up and make comment. That's when you can make your comments on this. I know that you're waiting to say something, but that will be the time, okay?
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
had one resident approach me too, and I just wanted to pass this along too, that they're, all in favor of enforcing the parking and stuff, but after 5 o'clock is where they kind of are like iffy about it, and this person said to me if they had the choice between going to eat downtown somewhere where they had to pay a parking meter and possibly get a ticket if they didn't put enough money in the meter, and going somewhere where there is no meter, they would choose the no meter every time. So that's just a thought to keep in
Balance
mind
there,
too.
the balance there is as Ralph said, Rita, is we know from experience that the renters, they get off work at 4:30, they come, they're not, if they can park right down in front of the Brockerhoff, for example, that's where they're gonna park. And they'll take up all those spaces, and then anyone that wants to go into the burger place or the Walk or Mama Lucretia's or whatever, they'll all be taken from, and they'll park there from 5 all night long through till the morning, because that's the time that it's free. That was the dilemma that we balanced. So if we can figure out, if there's a way to get around it, we're all open for suggestions on that end.
And the meter cost is minimal. It's 25 cents, for 50, I think, was it 15 or a half?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. If someone's gonna run in and get a burger or something.
You might not believe me, but as people walk, like if you're walking the footbeat downtown as a meter person, after a few months, you get to know cars, they get to know you very well too. So once the word gets out, okay, I think we've seen this before. It'll work itself out. There's always going to be little bumps in the roads before. But like I said, we've been tweaking how we're doing business. They will realize which cars are parking there all the time, and they'll get to know them. So It's not Manhattan. We'll take care of it. It'll be better for the town and for the businesses. It's just a big shock at first. So it'll work itself out.
Thanks, Chief. All right, we got to move on to our next topic if we're going to get it in. Downtown lighting and pedestrian safety was something we wanted to give time to tonight, so.
Again, just to open it up, we did a lot of work with around the Diamond. There was obviously a fatal accident there, a pedestrian accident. We agreed, the last big conversation, kind of where we left off, was to do the imprinting around the Diamond of the crosswalk, which was done, and improve the lighting right at the crosswalks with newer, brighter bulbs, like LED bulbs, or something close to that. But so all that was done. Then it was, if more needed to be done, we would have that as a possibility. So I think that's where we're at. I think there's interest in looking at increased lighting. It's still dark in the downtown, especially on a cloudy night. Your light just doesn't go anywhere. I think there's interest from what I'm hearing from members of council that more lighting needs to happen in the downtown. So I just wanted to kind of open it up, refresh your memory where we left off. We still have a lot of imprinting to do around the borough, in the downtown. We have some in a streetscape project. And lighting, we have a lot more to do on that as well. And then there's a possibility of crosswalk lighting. That'd be like mid-block or at the intersections. That's a whole nother phase that we could look at.
So has DBI and Jenny Lynn been brought in on this conversation?
We're just starting the conversation. As you know, they were talking about lighting up buildings. I don't think in our conversations, we haven't talked about street lighting or anything yet.
There was a meeting in last August,
Okay.
which had people from PennDOT, DBI, a couple members of council, individual businesses that were looking at trying to create a complete streets program, which involves not just what you're talking about. It includes creating a resolution here in council that says
Yes.
that we really want to improve the streets overall, and that would allow us to do things that we can't do right now through PennDOT, because that then allows us to go into this other pot of
All
money.
right, okay, well, let me just pick up on what Joanne just said. That's a whole nother can of worms.
We're just talking about lighting.
Just talking about lighting,
And the
which is under
crosswalks.
our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
It's not PennDOT's.
Yeah.
So
So what we
that
have in
whole
the-
conversation is another night.
Randy mentioned, I believe the crosswalks and lighting are an ongoing goal, or due to funding or lack thereof, we are not able to do everything in 1 year.
Obviously.
I mean, that's
That
really
makes
been the
sense.
struggle. There's, comments, and of course, we have a historic district. Some councils favor kind of a more
Hang on, Doug.
quaint feeling, in the downtown, and others want it bright. We always reference Lock Haven as if you want a bright downtown, that's where you go, versus like a quaint, kind of a darker town like ours.
Hey, Doug, we're talking about downtown lighting. You're froze there, but it seems like you were trying to type something. But Ralph was just going over what's in the works with the more imprinting of the crosswalks and additional lighting in downtown. And then we talked a little bit about crosswalk lighting. Just want to make sure you're on speaker, so if you had something to add to that, it looked like you did.
I just sent you a text
Okay,
with a really primitive video
yes,
of a couple examples.
okay. Of those crosswalk blinkers,
Yes. And then there's one with a pedestal light that is
Yeah.
mounted on the curb that shines onto the crosswalk.
yeah, I see that, okay. Yeah, so okay,
I have some others, but I'm the subject and I'm not ready to send that.
yeah.
I just want to make one additional comment, and is that I know that we're focusing on lighting. I think that that's perfectly appropriate. I'm just saying that this is a whole, we have a system that we need to figure out, so that, sort of like when we were doing with the Bellefonte Elementary School, and the thing is, if we don't look at the whole picture, we maybe end up making issues down the road that we don't want. So I'm just suggesting that we bring in DBI, so we know what they're thinking
Yeah.
about, not that they would be controlling what we're doing.
I would just add, if we get into crosswalk lighting, you gotta go through PennDOT, get permission, permits, all that. I think in the regular meeting agenda, we suggest, if council wants us to, we can send a letter to PennDOT asking about their process, their permission to do crosswalk lighting. I know that came up when we were talking about work around the diamond. And I know I don't want to quote what I thought I heard, but we can get a direct answer from PennDOT. Obviously, we're not going to do anything overnight, so certainly get some comments from some of the downtown organizations or whatever.
But there is additional lighting in the works, and obviously the imprinting, that's still
Yes.
to come.
Yes.
So that'll be an additional improvement
Yes,
to
so,
this
so
topic.
what we did with lighting is we just, within the last couple of months, finished lighting where the traffic lights are, is that correct?
The intersections on the T.
The intersections on the T by the diamond. Basically, we went with the double light, or a triple.
Well, we just enhanced the lighting
Yeah.
bulb.
Yeah.
We got a bulb that got us about twice the amount of light that the LED had.
But part of the discussion is, how can we enhance the lighting? They make, instead of a single lamp on top of a pole, you can go to double lamps. That's pretty common. We could show you some
I had them
pictures.
in the packet.
Okay.
There were some examples in the packet under the memo that I had, if you could see, it's basically just instead of just one light coming up,
Yeah.
it's a pole that comes up and splits,
Yeah.
and then you have two lights.
Sure.
And the prices were in there as well on, what the cost is of that. But if there's certain areas that we feel like right now, we've got to do something, like, for example, water and high, that might be an area where you might want enhanced lighting because
Okay.
of the number of children that go into the
It's-
dance studio.
It's a lot of traffic and a lot of kids, so, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We've never, did like a comprehensive upgrade of, well, we changed the bulbs over time. But maybe what Joanne's saying, comprehensively, we haven't come in and said, we're gonna do crosswalk lighting, we're gonna do imprinted crosswalks, we're gonna go with 2 lamps per post. We haven't done any of that.
We did have Penn State
Yes,
PhD students about 10 years ago do a study, and, their recommendations were, we had lights that were growing up into trees. They said you need to plan better. We've done that. We've cut trees down effectively to enhance the lighting in certain areas, especially on Allegheny Street. And then when we replanted, we looked and tried to spread them out from the lamp posts. So this has been an ongoing issue. I've been here now 16 years, and I think the lighting downtown's been an issue all along. And it's something we continually work on. Joanne has a good point, if it perhaps maybe what we should do is be working with other groups, and if we can, come up with one comprehensive long-term plan, start working towards it.
Good idea, thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for the work session. Unless you have anything else you want to add, we're running out of time and we want to start our meeting on time. Okay, that concludes our work session.
Thanks.
we're gonna get started, guys. I'm gonna call the Bellefonte Borough Council meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We're gonna get started here tonight.
I'm gonna add you.
We're gonna get started here tonight with a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We're going to take roll call. Mr. Stewart, please.
Mr. Bernier,
Here.
Mr. Brackville, Miss Cleaton, Miss Dan,
Here?
Mr. Johnson, Miss McKean,
Present.
Miss Purnell, Miss Sedgwick, Miss Tosti Vasey,
Perfect.
I'm here.
Mayor Johnson is excused.
All right, Doug, you good? You can hear us? Randy, Donna? Okay. All right, folks, earlier tonight we had an executive session where we discussed personal issue and a real estate issue. Just so we can get that on the record.
Yeah, Shauna, could you go on mute because we're getting feedback from yours?
Yeah. Trying to. I'm on mute now.
That's
Okay,
good.
Good.
We're good.
All right. Additions to the council meeting agenda.
There's a couple things I want to add. Number one, you may have noticed there was a couple communication items that we moved down to the consent agenda, and I wanted to clarify what we were doing, even though it's really not an addition to the council agenda. But for clarification, those two items are only requesting the dates be reserved. They will follow all other policies about sending in the application and getting estimates on the costs and so forth. All they're wanting to do is reserve the dates. So that's those two communication items under the consent agenda. Secondly, at the table this evening, and I think it was sent out today, there was another request from the Downtown Bellefonte Incorporated group for a special event to save dates. And again, they're just wanting to save dates. We would like to add that to the agenda if we could, if council's willing. It just came in, I think, yesterday or today. It was late, or no, it missed our cutoff. But we said we would put it at the table and see if council wants to add it to the agenda. That could be added, since it's just a date-saving item. It could be added to the consent agenda if you're willing.
And then the DBI?
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
I just want to save the dates.
Okay, on those two items, okay.
Yeah.
So when we get to that part, we'll vote on that. We'll ask for a motion.
No,
I think you have
You
to
want to do it
give
now?
your side
All right, so
I would make a motion not to do that, only because the law says that we can only add matters of potential or real emergencies. This is, the first date on that isn't until May, so saving it for 2 weeks is not going to make any difference.
The legislators gave you an out. You can do it if it's a matter of potential or real emergency. You can also add a matter of agency business to your agenda by majority vote. It's a second avenue.
okay.
It's more, you can do the first part, but they give you an out that by majority vote, you can add something to
So
the agenda.
we have two communications, you guys. One's the Victorian Christmas, asking to add, to reserve a couple dates, and we have a croquet tournament asking to reserve a couple of dates. I'll ask for a motion to approve that in a second, or we can do a roll call vote.
Ken, point of order.
Yeah, clarification, those are already on the agenda.
No,
Okay.
we're only talking about the DBI.
Yeah, this
Oh,
one.
this one?
Yes,
Adding that to the
Yes.
agenda.
Okay.
yeah.
I see no reason not to add it.
Yeah, for clarification, the act by majority vote gives you a way to add things.
Well, you have a motion from
Rob,
Joanne
did
right now.
somebody make the motion?
I believe Barb made the motion.
No,
Joanne
Joanne
made
made
the
the
motion
motion
not
not
to
to
add.
do
So
it.
if you don't get a second
Does
from
any-
hers, then
I need
you
a
can-
second to not
I
approve
got it,
this.
seconded, Johnson seconds it.
Okay, well, okay, now we have discussion.
Well, yeah, any discussion? So, yes.
So he was seconding the motion?
Yes.
Did he
Yeah,
misunderstand the motion?
let's repeat the motion.
Yeah.
Joanne made a motion to not approve DBI's request to add this to the agenda. And I need a second to,
Doug seconded.
and you seconded it.
So we can call for the vote. Now, a yay means,
Add it. No.
Yay
Not
means
added.
it's not added.
Not
Yea
added.
means agree with the motion.
Right.
A nay means disagree with the current motion.
Right.
A nay means disagree with the current motion.
yes,
All right, want to do a roll call vote?
we can.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bernier,
Nay.
let me write this down here. Mr. Brackbill,
Nay.
Ms. Cleaton,
Nay.
Ms. Stan,
Nay.
Mr. Johnson,
No.
Ms. McKean,
Nay.
Ms. Purnell,
Nay.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Nay.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
The nays have it.
You
Okay.
gave it a
So we added that, we added that.
Now you want to go back and see if there's a motion
All right.
to add it to the agenda.
Can I get
I
a,
will, for Mr. President or Vice President, I'll make the motion to add that to the agenda.
all right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Second,
it.
Bracknell.
Okay, second, Brackbill. Discussion.
Just a curiosity question, just to make sure that I know what I'm voting on. It's just this DBI thing. It's not the email that I sent and that was forwarded to entire council about the other 7 items.
No, it's a DB, just this thing at the table
Okay,
for
that's-
just the dates.
All those in favor of adding it, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
I hear one.
Motion passes.
Opposed.
Downtown DBI got their dates. All right, we're moving along, hopefully.
No, they didn't get their dates. That just
They-
puts it on the agenda
Yes.
down the consent.
Yeah.
Have we spent enough time on this? Public comment. This is a time for public to come to the podium. If you have a comment, please come on up to the podium, state your name and where you live, and let us know what you got, please.
My name's Sandy Sherman. I'm a retired nurse from Central County Youth Center, and I live in the Cadillac Building on Allegheny Street, where the parking is a big, big problem. First off, there are 3 handicapped families in the building. There's only 1 handicapped spot. So that needs to be addressed. Secondly, when you're talking about certain side of the street being for Hofbrau patrons and the other side of the street supposedly being for residents, does not work. We're only allowed to park one side of the street one night, the other side the next night. There are signs posted up there that every other day you have to move your car, and it's time for 1 a.m. I don't have a car. My 75-year-old sister does. Surely you don't expect her to go out at 1 a.m., drive to the other side of the street. Everybody's following me?
Yes.
Okay,
far.
that's ridiculous. And why is that anyway? Is it for street cleaning or because the street's not being cleaned every night? I know, I live there. We can see the brush marks of the machine when he does come, which means there'd be brush marks on one side, next day there'd be brush marks on the other side. That is not happening. If you're paying somebody to do that, you're wasting money.
We usually don't go back and forth in these public comments. We usually take your comments, and we're happy to get back to you at some point. But just very quickly, it's about sweeping in the summertime and snow removal in the wintertime. Now, this winter has been unique, but it's so that we can get near the curb and clean the snow out of the way. With alternate street parking, it keeps everybody moving from one side to the next, so we can clean one side one night and go and clean the other side the other night.
I understand that, but that allows only one side of Allegheny be available for parking.
Most of the downtown has that same pattern. You could go up to Logan, you could park in a parking lot. Even the parking lots, we try to work around the cars, but there's times where we empty out the parking lots on a different night. We try to, balance it out, but we try to make sure there's places for people to go if they go out of the parking lots.
Okay,
It's
the real
difficult.
problem I'm here is not the sign. I just think it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Personal opinion. My sister repeatedly gets parking tickets. Now, we spoke with 2 of your 3 officers one time when they were ticketing someone else. And I wasn't aware who they were and asked if I could help them. And the man very rudely let me know he didn't need any help. So I continued to ask what it was about, and because I was wondering why they were taking my neighbor's looking at the back for a car and everything, because she was injured at that moment and I was trying to help. And he told me, the conversation got to the parking permits, and he told me we can get parking permit for $45 a month. He never mentioned the residential parking permits for $15 a month. And then he said he could not guarantee a spot. Now, if I'm going to pay for a spot, I want that spot to be there when I need it. Otherwise, I don't feel I should have to pay for a spot that somebody else is parked in. And I don't think I should be ticketed if somebody's parked in the spot I paid for and I have to park next to it. Or across the street, which isn't allowed.
All right. We appreciate your comment, ma'am. Does your sister have one as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, come on up, ma'am. State your name and your address, and we give you 3 minutes to voice your concern.
I get a parking ticket every other day.
Can you give us your name first?
Yeah, what's
I'm
your name?
sorry, I forgot that. My
That's all
name
right.
is Joanne Neal. I live in the Cadillac building also with my sister. Every other day, I get a parking ticket. I have retired. There's no way I can pay either one of these. Does somebody want to help me?
There is a formal process called an exoneration process.
I don't know all about that. The mayor,
Yes,
he gave me 1 free ticket.
okay.
But I can't pay these. I will get my check on the 3rd of the month. How long do I have to pay these?
We'll work with you. Before you leave, we might make sure we get your name and number. We're more than happy to work with you. Just make sure we have your way that we can get in touch with you.
When you say you're going to work with me, what do you mean?
I'm not going to explain it here, ma'am. I'm in the middle of a meeting, but I'll be in touch with you. We'll give you plenty of time to take care of those tickets.
And I agree with my sister. She's not a liar, she's telling the truth.
I have no doubt whatsoever.
And I don't mean to be harsh to everybody.
No.
That's all right.
Yes, we're more than happy to work with you.
This just isn't the right
Yes. Yes.
procedure to help you with your ticket time.
I know. I know
We
what
only
you're
have
saying.
limited time, and we have a meeting
you only have
agenda to
3
get
minutes.
through.
I
So
understand.
everyone at this table understands your frustration, without a doubt. And we will do what we can to help you. We just
Yes.
can't do it right now.
Yes.
I thank you for your time
Absolutely.
and patience.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
welcome.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah. Sir?
Good evening, folks. I'm Scott Rowe. I'm the Executive Director and Chief at Bellefonte EMS. It's been a while since I've come in to visit. Some of the folks that have been here longer, I've met in the past, but for those that are, I won't say even relatively new, because it's now been a year that you've been here. So I believe Ralph included our 2022 year-end reports. We typically give those to you quarterly. And it just so happened that since you moved your meeting from last night to tonight, I was able to be here. So unless you have any questions on the report, or I can answer any in general questions for you about the organization, that was my primary purpose for being here this evening. Just looking down over the report that I did provide, a couple things that you may notice that under the call volume by municipality, for 2022, Bellefonte had 496 emergency calls that we handled within the borough. That's 27% of our total call volume that we handled, and that is actually significantly down Bellefonte Borough used to represent about 35 to 37% of our total call volume, and pretty much that change is reflected with the move of Centercrest out of the borough. And that was something that we predicted would be a loss of about 150 to 170 calls per year, and that number's holding pretty much true and accurate. So that moved up to the center region when they moved and relocated to College Township. Overall, that may not seem like much. However, that loss also represents about a $70,000 loss in revenue for our organization, and really does not reflect much in a decrease in expenses or cost because we're staffed 24/7. Yeah, it saved maybe a little bit of fuel, but it really didn't reduce overall expenses. Looking down through there, we have one ambulance there that's due to be replaced. It was going to get replaced last year. However, with supply chain issues, what used to be about a 6-8 month delivery time for a new ambulance once it's ordered is now over 2 years from the time of order till delivery, and costs have gone up about 35 to 40%, which is significant when you're talking about a $260,000, $270,000 ambulance that's now $325,000 or more. So we do have an option. It's not often that a used vehicle that is worth considering comes on the market, because most ambulance services now run them literally till the wheels fall off. And they're holding on to them much longer, or if they do become available, they're scarfed up before it ever hits the market, which due to a colleague in a neighboring county that we're friends, we talk once in a while, he alerted us that he may have a used vehicle for sale. It's 12 years old, has 210,000 miles on it, but we figure that we can still get another 100,000 miles out of it, which will last us for about another 5 to 6 years or so. And that'll be a significant cost savings if we're able to make that happen. So those are pretty much the things that I had for you, unless you folks have any questions for me or any way we can assist. Yeah.
Just a real quick question. I know that the legislature has been considering working towards a county level process rather than a municipal process. Where is that, and how might that affect us with the emergency services?
I believe what you're referencing is at the state level in Pennsylvania. The legislature, I believe it was a House bill in the last session, which ran 21 and 22. They did have a piece of legislation that would enable a county level municipal authority. Right now, there's potential for local municipal authorities, and there's only 5 of them in the state. The closest being in the Altoona area for AMED, which is City of Altoona and Logan Township. AMED now covers about 90% of Blair County through that municipal authority for ambulance. At the state level, that piece of legislation had a little bit of traction. However, at the end of last year, died when the legislative session ended.
I've seen a memo for this year.
Yes, there is discussion. I don't know whether it's going to go anywhere, especially with a split House and Senate, 2 different parties. Who knows? Amazingly, last year, 2 years ago, there was discussion. PSATs, Association of Township Supervisors and Association of Boroughs, came out in support of it. Initially, the County Commissioners Association came out with discussion and came out in for it. But when they made an official statement, the County Commissioners Association actually opposed the legislation, which probably did not help its prospects. And it would not be a mandate, it would be an option. One of the downfalls of that legislation as it was written said that the whole county did not have to agree to it, but if 51% of the population within the county agreed to it, then it forced the whole county to participate. Whereas a different version of the legislation said that 2, 8, 10, 20 municipalities within the county could go together and form it. But if you opted out, then you weren't party to it. So it was probably part of that 51% voting yes, forcing the rest into it, that would probably be one of the hurdles that was debated. But I've not heard anything additional. So is it a potential option in the future? Depends what the legislature does.
Anybody have any questions for him relative to his report? Everybody get a chance to look at it in the packet?
if anything comes up, feel free to give me a call or an email or stop at the
Thanks for
station.
coming in person and talking to us.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You'll probably get tired of seeing me eventually.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Any other public comment from anyone? Okay. Moving on to communications, written.
There's a few items here. One is about Parkview Heights. There's a property that is being offered to the borough for consideration. It adjoins some of our parkland, or what we call the Teener League Field. Recommending that we maybe move that as a discussion item, or we did have a little bit of discussion in executive session since it involves real estate, but we'll pursue that in a different matter. The next item is a concern about.
Do we need a motion to move it to a work session?
I can just do that administratively and talk with our officers at the next planning session for our agenda. The next item is a concern about the red, I guess, painted stripes and the permitting rules and all of that with the parking along North Allegheny Street, specifically in the 200 block. Again, we can look at that with staff and come back with some suggestions and maybe even have some discussion in an upcoming work session. Again, we didn't ask for any council action this evening. And lastly, the Boroughs Conference, we're getting materials on the upcoming annual Boroughs Association Conference. The dates are June 4th through the 7th. It's like a Sunday evening to Wednesday noon. We did move our June 7th, or moved our council meeting from the 5th to the 7th because of this conference. We'll be home plenty of time that Wednesday. If you're interested, please see us right away. The rooms and usually fill up pretty quickly. They want to bring that to your attention. That's all I have under written communications.
Moving on to the consent agenda. I'd like to call for a motion.
Mr. Stewart?
Go ahead, Doug. Or Randy. Randy, go.
I just want to encourage people to take a look at their calendars for this PSAB annual conference in June. Let's see how many people that we can have interest with to possibly help them along, for rooms and things like that, what our budget might look like for that.
Sure. Yes. If you're
June
interested.
4th through the 7th.
Yes.
At the Hershey Lodge. Okay, Randy, thank you.
Thank you.
Shauna still with us?
Yes.
All right, okay. Moving on, consent agenda. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as it appears here today before us in our packet.
I'll make that motion, Clayton.
Clayton made the motion. I need a second.
I'll second. Dan?
I'd like to remove the minutes, but only for a comment, not for any changes.
Why would it need to be removed if you're just making a comment?
Because it doesn't affect, because there's something missing. There, in our packet, the attendance sheet was not included with the minutes. And I'm saying that it's in there, it just needs to be placed with the minutes going forward. And I don't know if that's
But we can just handle that.
Okay,
We'll file
okay,
that. Yeah, that's
then-
easy.
All right.
that was all.
All right, so all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say
Does that
aye.
include the DBI thing that we added?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Consent agenda is taken care of. Next is reports, elected officials and staff reports. Who do we have tonight?
So the mayor's away, the chief is here, and if you want, maybe you want to combine yours?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yep, knock it out all at once.
Yeah.
So, Joanne, I know you got something to ask me.
Yep.
There's numbers.
Yes.
Okay, if you look to the numbers on the January and December report, I was just deleting them because I could not figure out for the life of me what they were. So I had Gabby call our IT provider, or actually our records management provider, and, it says cases, and there should be like a number 5 up there, but there's no total cases. You go to December, go to the next to the last page, and there is a case, and there's total cases 5. They are there. They are They are actually cases, they don't have, and it's hard to explain it, but there's a number that we have to, that coincides with it once it's filed at the misdemeanor level. For some reason, they're not coming over our system, and it will mess, if I take them out, it'll mess everything up. So I don't have an answer for you, but I have to leave them in there now. But they are legitimate arrests and calls, actually, or cases that were crimes. So that's all I have for you as far as, that's what I knew you were going to ask me. Right? I know, it's one of them. Though. Okay. So, December's, I was late getting it in. I was at training. So if you have any questions on December's 2022, please report. Move to January's. Any questions on January's report? Okay, moving along to, there was a complaint, a speeding complaint filed by a resident, came to the mayor, to me, and is that report in your packet?
Yes.
Okay, so is there any questions about where I was going with this, the methodology, the methodology that we used? I want to let you know that Howard Street is other streets in the borough, but since I've been here, Howard Street has had a chronic issue from one end to the other end, okay? And everywhere in between, you can see we run VASCAR down by Station 1, Logan's. We run it mid-block where we can safely at the, where the cemetery is, we back up on the hill. And the gatehouse, the 600 block is where we can really start effectively enforcing speed. I was in contact with the particular resident fairly often, and today I brought him in, I had a map up and I showed him exactly, detail by detail, what we did, the methods that we used, letting him know there's certain restrictions that we do face, and they're looking more into it on the 700 block side. Is a major, you have a 40-mile-an-hour zone coming into 10 feet into the borough, turns to 25, which means we have 500 feet that we cannot enforce the speed. Okay, so it's a 40-mile-an-hour zone, plus we have to give them 10 over. So from the borough line to Crider Lane is about 500 feet. Well, it's exactly 500 feet. A vehicle can travel 50 miles an hour into an area where there's, residents, a residential area, legally. So that poses issues. Which means that's the 600 block from Crider Lane to about, exactly 602 East Howard. Okay, that's Crestside Terrace. Every driveway, the driveways actually start on the south side, okay? The driveways don't start until McAllister Street, correct? I don't have my map up, so I can actually throw this map up. You might be able to see a little bit there if I move a little closer. So we're talking about this area right here. Howard Street, okay, coming in through here. So there's the whole 500 feet plus some. The driveways sit below the grade of the highway. If we put our markings up, our VASCAR lines, we cannot see them. So we really don't even get a shot at these people these motorists until they're at the 600 block, roughly. And which poses some issues. And there's other, and I explained to the gentleman, he's on more like the 600 block, where we can, although we're restricted, we can think out of the box, and we're still always going to be enforcing speed there. But today the traffic enforcement was myself and one more officer. So, and when you look through the clusters of speeds and with the charts I gave you, there's a chart in there. I don't know if I gave you the chart, but it basically says that in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, basically the numbers stayed the same, whether we enforced it or we didn't. Yeah. But the where you see the highest volume of speed, and this gentleman said he really noticed it at certain, 8 o'clock in the morning. There's other places in the borough that we also have to be with limited manpower. We have 3 school zones, and, so we're all over the place. And for the amount of enforcement that, that can be sporadic at times, we can pull in there and see no one speeding and pull away, and 2 minutes later, someone's going to go by. We're never there when you need us. That's the rule. But there are ways that we can do this with some different technology and tweaking, and not giving my cards up, but reached out to a few other law enforcement or agencies in the area that, it wouldn't be, it's a Bellefonte Borough Police, detail. It would be, getting assistance from other agencies and, ramping it up that way. And we know where most of the cars are coming from. And so we're still on it. It's going to be one of those things that we're going to be battling, not just on Howard Street, but pretty much, everywhere, every day, as far as speeding goes. So, my report was more directed to you guys to let you know that we're addressing the situation. We know it's there. There's more to come. We have some good ideas on how we're going to address it. We have the data that we need, and we know exactly, it's coming both directions. You would think it's mostly coming, into town because of the slope, but we're also getting more coming in too. So we're going to move some things around with our signs and get some additional tweaks to the signage, and we're going to keep on going with it. So more to come on that.
Everybody here that's on, could everybody hear the chief?
Yes.
Anybody that's on speakerphone here have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can we get PSP to cover, ask them to detail it 1 or 2 days a month?
That would be, was up my alley there.
Okay. So Chief, anybody else have any questions?
Is there anything else along that stretch of Howard that can be done to make it safer for the kids who have to cross Howard Street?
We looked at that years ago as well. They did put the blinking signs in, okay, and it's during the school hours.
Yeah.
And so it basically lights up the intersection, say there's a crosswalk down there. That is, my knowledge, is the only one that we have.
I think so, a lightly crossed.
And they made the crosswalks bigger, more pronounced at the Wilson Street intersection.
And this is a budget, all streets, the complete streets issues back again. There's no sidewalk in that section there, and I think that would help with.
There's also no sidewalk, yeah. Well, on the other side.
Right.
They're on.
There's a cross side, is
There's a sidewalk on
Yes.
Crest Side Terrace side.
So
it's-
yeah, on that road, but then
But
once you
it's,
cross.
I think and that's a long-term semi-solution.
But when you cross at Wilson, so if you cross Howard to go
Right.
on Wilson, yeah, there's no sidewalk on Wilson, kind of either
Right.
direction.
Right.
So kids walking the streets there too.
Yeah.
But
I think, Chief, this was a specific complaint from this gentleman. Were you able to give him specific numbers on
Yeah,
how
we
many
sat in
cars
that
you
office
stopped?
today for about a half hour, 45 minutes. I shared with him all the, probably even more so, the data, and we went over it. And he was.
Data, you mean from the sign about cars that come through there, or the speeds?
Yeah, speeds, everything.
But I think what we wanted to hear was specifically how many cars you were able to stop.
Oh, it's in
sight.
here. Yeah,
In
it's in
that
here.
month, and from January to today, this
Oh,
gentleman.
it wasn't, it was from, it was
Whenever
in
the complaint
report.
came in.
We stopped. Should be in the report.
I was looking, you had someplace in here specific for that street and that complaint? I can't find it. I can't scroll through.
So on phase 3, display mode with enforcement,
Okay.
did you see that one?
No, go ahead though. What does it say?
Okay, just reading down through it. There was 12 hours, total solid 12 hours in the 3-phase block, or in the phase 3, that we were able to, just dedicate one officer for 12 hours, obviously it was 15 minutes
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So 12 hours
piecemeal.
total of enforcement in that area.
Right.
Okay.
15 traffic stops.
Yeah, 15
Okay.
traffic stops.
Okay. Mhm. Well, I mean, that's pretty good, right, Chief? I mean, for your size department and your manpower, you're able to
Well,
go out in one specific area.
There's a lot of factors that go into that too. I mean,
Yeah.
time of day when he gets a chance to go up
Sure,
there
sure,
to sit.
yeah.
We're not, we know what times that we need to be there. It's getting freed up to be there.
Yeah.
And, if you're gonna hunt ducks, you wanna go to a pond.
All right.
Not. So,
All right, so
and it's ongoing.
There was a specific effort
Yeah.
made for that street during this time, and you did what you could, and that's all we want, that's all I wanted to hear. I think that's all council wanted to hear, and, we appreciate your effort in that. We understand it's difficult, believe me. All right, any other questions
Any
for the
Yes.
chief?
Yes, I know which question.
Don and Deb and I met on Friday on the sustainability program, and they brought up something that we had actually brought up over a year ago about trying to create a system for at-risk people.
It's being worked on right now. Actually, Gabby is getting the information. We're gonna put it on we don't just wanna put it on the flyer for the spring flyer. We wanted to actually put it on the website and put a form in, so they don't have to call 911. They just, at their leisure, put it on the website and boom.
So what this is that we're looking for something so that people who are at risk, whether they're family members or they individually, can contact the police, put their names on the list. And I talked to Buddy, and he said that if we have this list, he would be willing to go and do wellness checks on a periodic basis so that we know that our vulnerable population is okay and safe.
So what I want from you is that any suggestions, an email, what you want on that list. And
Okay.
send them to Gabby, please. And she'll
Okay.
put them in there.
But I think that will help us help the elderly, or people with disabilities.
It's like
Yeah, so-
something, it's not gonna be like, can you go get her groceries every
Right,
other?
right,
It's
right.
like,
Welfare
something
checks.
major, yeah,
Welfare
something
checks.
major, like,
Yeah.
if,
That-
her
Gabby's putting
blinds are
together
usually
something like
shut
that.
or open at a certain time and we drive by. But, the neighbors do this quite a bit with each other, and this is to back up the neighbors too.
And then the other part of that, what we had discussed, was he was going to keep a list of family members for people who live alone, so that
Emergency contacts.
emergency contacts, so that it's like what happened with Gene Newland, who had died and took several days for it to be found. We know who to contact for family.
Yes.
So, and I really appreciate that work.
Yep, I knew you were gonna ask that question.
Thanks, chief. Nobody else here, there's nobody here from Harb,
No,
zoning,
Gina is not here this evening.
nuisance, borough manager
It's-
submitted,
I submitted a report.
assistant borough manager submitted. Any questions for those reports from anyone? All right. Liaison reports? That's all it is?
Yes. Anyone that says submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't one for the EAB because I gave that report at the last meeting.
Okay. Moving on then to current and old business. We took care of the speeding
We took care of
report,
that
thanks
one.
to chief.
Yes.
Budget versus actual.
That was an explanation that our finance director provided back to council.
Excellent.
I'd like to make a comment, that's okay. But we do need a motion before I make my comment, it looks like.
I'll make the motion to remove the budget from,
Ver- Yep, versus actual.
remove it.
Yeah, it says to, need a motion, a second to remove the budget versus actual, December 22nd.
Yep,
From the
that's
t-
what I'm doing,
I'll
All right.
second it, Clayton.
Clayton seconded. Discussion?
Movement doesn't require, you just have a vote on that.
This is just to move it from off the table to an action item.
Okay.
So you just have a vote to say we can talk about it.
You just call for the vote.
All those in favor of removing it, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Motion passes. It's been removed.
Now we need a motion to approve it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Randy made the motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Clayton seconded it. But that just seems like,
process.
Yeah, just for our recorder here, it's a motion and a second to approve the budget versus actual December 2022.
We have your discussion.
Okay, discussion now.
Okay.
Everybody understands what we just did.
Yeah. I'd like to thank Lori Walker for her feedback on my question about the reserve funds that I raised at the last meeting. I do understand that the reserves are monies from previous years. These reserves are created in prior years and placed somewhere for use in the future, appearing as revenues in the budget. But as she said, they don't show up anywhere as an expense because they come out of the prior year's budget. That all makes sense and partially answered my question. Knowing that this, however, without knowing how much of the previous year's funding actually goes into balancing this year's budget, or in this case, last year's, makes it hard for me and for the public to understand the accuracy of the budget. Maybe what I could ask this in a different way. Where are the reserve and surplus funds kept, and how are they audited or tracked? And if we are generating surplus in previous years, it becomes problematic to me and to the public if we can't explain to them how these reserves are, where they're being used and when they're being used. Maybe what would help here might be another part, either annually or quarterly, to the council, where we see what reserves are from the previous years are being used and how they're being audited and tracked. I think that would make it much clearer for us to know what's going on.
That was a lot, Joanne. But I think the topic here was that your question, she answered it the best that she could. So if you
Right,
have
I'm
an
not saying-
initial
I'm
one,
not
maybe you
saying she
should give
did.
it to her in writing, because I don't know that we're prepared to
So what we were
discuss what you
told
just
a year
talked
ago,
about.
a year and a half ago, was that we were instructed not to talk directly to the staff. So the only way I can get these questions answered is to do them at this meeting. If that was changed, then I don't have a problem with that.
Well, we did what we did here. We went back and got Lori's
Yes, and I
comments.
agree with her. I think she
Yeah.
did a great job. I'm not
Okay.
saying she didn't
All right,
didn't
what are we
answer
doing
that.
then?
What I'm asking is that maybe to help clarify how we are using the reserves, is to have another report besides what we're getting. Maybe it doesn't have to be every month.
Okay, well, we can ask Lori to see if maybe she can provide that.
Yes, that's what I'll.
Okay.
So, and that's all I'm asking.
All
I'm
right.
not
Yes.
saying that
No,
the what she did was wrong.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's just saying that I think it might be helpful to have some additional information
Okay.
about those
Yeah.
reserve funds
I can
specifically.
take back what you said. We'll have her listen and
Okay.
get some comments back.
All right, anything else? If not, we're going to move on to, there's some information here.
No, we have to
We need to
vote.
approve a motion.
We have to vote.
On this item, the approval of the budget
Budget.
versus actual
All right.
spending.
All those in favor of approving the budget versus the actual December 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Aerial photo information is in your packet here. The gentleman that came and spoke, Greg Cromer, on February 6th. His website's there. If you'd like to know more about the photo or see prices, it's there for you. This next item seems like we covered it, doesn't it?
We covered it in the work session. We talked about the lighting downtown, and we suggested if you want us to contact PennDOT about seeking permission or input on lighted crosswalks. We know their PennDOT governs the right-of-ways. We could start that process,
Okay.
at minimum.
So I'll make a motion to have staff prepare recommendations for cost for improving the lighting at the intersections throughout the commercial district. And secondly, send a letter to PennDOT asking what we need to do if we were to make changes.
Yes.
Okay. I need a second for that. Okay, Cedric? All those in favor of having staff send communication to PennDOT to install lighting or in the crosswalks and improve lighting, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll take care of that.
We already talked about this.
Again, a work session, we talked about parking fees and enforcement hours, and we talked, generally about a 6-month period to collect some data. We just wanted to know if you wanted to officially approve that as an action item.
I would make that motion.
That's Dan.
I'll second for now.
Okay, all those in favor of doing a 6-month period on the parking situation and
Giving staff some time to gather data.
giving the staff some time to collect data, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion passes. We're gonna get some data relative parking.
This will come up sometime during the August meeting.
More than you
Somewhere
want.
about there, roughly.
Next, electric vehicle charging in municipal lots. What do we got here, Ralph?
Well, this came up when we were working on the agenda with parking questions. If you want us to look at possibilities for charging, we can do that.
I would like to make that motion.
I'll second that, Cleve.
That was Dan and Clayton.
Okay, so all those in favor,
Discussion?
we're gonna discuss it. Go ahead, Joanne.
Just real quick, I think this is probably a good idea. There are multiple different ways. We've talked about this on and off in work sessions. We've talked about it in council sessions. I think if we have a written idea of what's possible, it will help us make a better decision. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, all those in favor of having the anybody else have any discussion? I'm sorry. Okay, seems like we have enough idea. Council can take action. All those in favor of the staff to develop options for charging EV owners for the use of electricity in the borough, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, Ralph.
We'll get
All
busy
right.
on that.
We have a vacancy.
Yes, this is
Okay.
one of the unfilled positions we do annually, or we're supposed to do annually. We didn't have a name till now, so the recommendation is Frank Buddy Holderman.
I'll make that motion to appoint Frank Buddy Halderman to the vacancy board.
That's Johnson.
I'll second that.
Second, Brock.
Brackbill, second.
We have to have discussion on that.
Sorry, Barb.
Yes, we're
It's
supposed to.
fine.
Anybody have any other comment or discussion on that? All those in favor of appointing Frank Buddy Halderman to the vacancy board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
I have one issue for old business. I wanted to just make everyone aware that the cameras down at Musser Lane have been installed. So we can, I think if council wants to at some point, when Councilman Johnson gets back, since it was his issue, we can talk about hours. I think I just lost them.
Mr. Johnson, did you hear that? Your cameras have been
Yes, sir.
installed at the,
Yeah,
all right.
I'm here.
All right, sir.
I think for the public, Suze, this was on the agenda in Don's report.
Yes.
It just didn't show up here under old
Yeah,
business.
Well, I
actually-
didn't have the issue that they were actually installed.
Yeah,
I
he
said they were in.
here, but not-
They were installed the last couple days.
Okay.
Hey, Randy, my phone's dying, so if you go out,
I can call you, Randy.
I'm on low power mode.
All right, so, under new business, we have the Center County Boroughs Association meeting is 6 PM on Wednesday, March 15th, at the Bellefonte Borough Building. Anything else?
There's no action. I just wanted to let everybody know, we've been trying to get this organization off the ground. We started it during COVID. We did find a sponsor for the refreshments, the meeting. It's a Teeter Group who provides municipal insurance coverages. And then we have a speaker. The speaker is Senator Chris Dush. Even though maybe some boroughs may not be exactly in his district, but certainly being able to present borough-related issues is a good opportunity. So he'll be there that evening and have a little presentation or speech or whatever that evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Monthly reports and various updates from the Assistant Borough Manager.
My report was in the council packet. It did include some, attachments on various parking revenue and the Union Cemetery update. If anyone has any
questions for the? No? All right. Refuse container fee schedule?
Well, the motion here is about increasing the fee for refuse container replacements primarily, or new ones. The 95-gallon refuse container, I'm sure our costs have gone up, just as we've heard many times about costs going up. We're asking to increase the fee to $75 for replacements of those, or issuing of new containers.
We just ordered 180 new containers and they went up $15.
Yes.
So this would change the fee schedule.
I need a motion to change that.
I'll make that
In-
motion. I'm sorry. I'll
Okay,
make the
yep.
motion.
I'll second it, Cleve.
Dan?
And one question, is this the brush containers or the garbage
we got
containers
all
or
that.
both?
It's everything.
Okay,
So, but if
that's-
someone needs a container,
95-gallon.
95-gallon container, it'd be,
And what about the small size ones?
we still have some in storage, so we didn't have to order any of those yet.
So they're not changing?
As of now, no.
Okay.
Okay. All those in,
Is this affecting our current, like I got a bill already, paid it, so am I gonna get another bill for the 70, to cover the 75?
No, Randy, this is for a replacement of a container.
or new?
Okay,
Yeah.
just want to be clear.
Yeah, so those of us that have them, nothing changes. Okay, all right. No, I understand your
Unless
question.
you
Yep.
have a
Unless it gets
windstorm
break,
crash
open.
them.
All right. All right, so all those in favor for the borough to increase the fee for a new or replacement 95-gallon refuse container, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Price is going up. Got it, all right? All right, last section is for our council members here and staff, if they have comments. I'll start with Rita Purnell.
So I just wanted to start out by mentioning, and I'm sure most of you have heard by now, the tragedy that happened in East Palestine, Ohio with the train, which kind of made me think about the train that we have going through our town that goes close to our water supply, and just wondering if there's any way we can find out what kind of materials are being hauled on there besides limestone, if there's anything other than that.
Sure.
So I would like to know what's going through our town.
What I can do, Rita mentioned, she may want to bring this up. I just relayed to Rita, the tracks are owned by CEDACOG, sort of a governmental entity in Lewisburg, and the operator is Nittany Bald Eagle Railroad. And we can send a letter to them and get some feedback. I'm sure there's papers and so forth. I don't know where to access what's traveling through the community, but maybe they'll let us know how that works and what processes and, what say does the community have of anything. We'll try to get some details and come back with that.
I'm sure we won't be the only ones asking.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Rita. Anything else?
I stopped in to see the toy car guy the other day. I can't,
I
and my
saw him
apologies, I
too,
can't think
yeah.
of his name, but.
Yes, Mr. Bechtel.
Yeah.
Yes,
Christian
he said
Bechtel.
he had not heard from anybody yet about doing any advertising, but he has an interesting shop. You should
Yeah.
stop by and see it.
I was through it a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, but yes, it is. It's crammed full of die-cast toys. Yes, I know, and then, we talked with Gina a little bit, and Gina's former position, they did meet with him and try to work out something with DBI, maybe even the chamber met with him, but there's some difficulties or challenges. His facility is not ADA accessible, restrooms are not, I don't think, accessible. Like if the public or a tour group went in there, it'd be difficult to handle that. So there's some challenges and limitations that would need to be figured out by somebody. So Certainly it's on the radar, but they're not sure how to go about where he's at and how
Gotcha.
that would work with their tourism and so on. But he's at least on the radar.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Clayton.
Nothing this evening.
Joanne.
Yes, Commissioner Amber Concepcion asked me to make this announcement for this evening. Commonwealth Court Judge Renee Cohn Jubileer ruled that Pennsylvania's school funding system is unconstitutional and must be reformed. In the 786-page decision, she said, quote, "It is now the obligation of the legislature, executive branch, and educators to make the constitutional promise of equitable resource allocation of funding for education a reality in this Commonwealth. So this Saturday, February 25th at 10:30 a.m. on the courthouse steps, a rally will be held calling upon our state lawmakers to take the necessary steps to fix Pennsylvania's unconstitutional school funding system. Several elected officials will be speaking at this rally. You and the public are invited."
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm sorry, what time did you say that was?
10:30 a.m.
Thank you.
Mr. Holderman?
Mr. Vice President, I'm just very happy to be here.
Mr. Stewart, I don't have anything other than what I've already done to this poor meeting, so I apologize.
You've done a great job. So we're
Filling in.
Yeah,
Yes.
that goes me big, right?
Yes.
Wait till next year.
Okay, we're looking forward to it. I have nothing to add this
All right.
evening. Good job with
Yeah,
everything.
thank you.
Yeah, that was mine too. Thank you, Kent. You
Good.
did a great job these past couple of weeks. Thank you.
Nothing to add tonight.
Thank you, guys. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. Oh,
I have nothing.
okay. I can't believe that. Mr. Brackbill?
I just want to do a shout out for the local fire company who during January worked with Weiss and collected foods and took those to various locations for drop off. I think it's a great thing. I think the Alphas up in State College were also involved in that.
Everybody hear that? Logan Fire Company here in Bellefonte worked collecting food and taking it to the needy last month. Is that right, Randy?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, sorry I didn't catch it already.
Shauna?
Shauna?
I don't have anything.
Okay. All right, you guys, sorry about the communication problems, but I think it worked out pretty good. You guys could at least hear what was going on, huh?
Yeah, it was better than traveling than the cans, you know.
Okay.
What was that? What was that?
All right, you guys, we'll see you next month, okay?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
Joanne Tosti, base motion, Dan second.